Good evening, my fellow Americans.
Take the red pill.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
The disastrous rise of misplaced power exists.
All we have built, all we have worked for, would be destroyed.
There is nothing the political establishment will not do.
And this nation will not be fully free until all its citizens are free.
Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action,
These criminals cannot be rewarded.
so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction.
There is a point beyond which they must not advance.
They're coming after you, and I'm just standing in their way. Here I am.
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
The cost of freedom is always high.
Those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening.
Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
This is a crusade! This is a holy war against the deep state!
We never wanted to be right, but yet things are all adding up to the firestorm.
Let's go. The world getting crazy, baby, chill. Don't medicate, just meditate. You waking up now, well, baby, you hella late. Educate, look at what's going on, let it resonate, accelerate. Find your inner hunger like you never ate. Agenda is to push the hate. Separate and segregate, don't celebrate quite yet. The storm is coming, cue for heaven's sake. Violence that they demonstrate, instigate and penetrate the values of our country. And our God is what they desecrate. My fighters ain't no featherweight, pulling out the seams of the fabric that they fabricate. They feed us lies, manipulate, intimidate through fear and force, forcing us to sit and wait till we come together, congregate, and then we liberate. Praying that you give me strength to find some love amongst the hate. Marching on the streets of blood till I see the golden gates. Troubadour, troubled souls, one of God's servants. Blades out, cut the grass till we see the serpents.
Oh, one day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.
I know the truth is hard to swallow, just digest it. Suspected something's going on, chosen just neglected, deflected by some breaking news. Oh, we just accept it, expected just to fall in line and follow their perspective. Don't question their objectives, but I got a lot of questions. How these kids molested, but nobody's been arrested. Read it in the testament, these children are protected. So I'm fighting all these terrorists, both foreign and domestic. Refuse to be directed, lying not a sheep, only kneel to my God. So I'm dying on my feet. Silence when we speak, but there's violence in the street. I've been rolling with the punches, I can't take it on the cheap. Nah, drink from a glass half full, I'm optimistic. People are sadistic, so vicious and malicious. Praying for assistance to overcome opposition, or I'm gonna start resisting and then I'll pray for forgiveness.
Oh, one day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This they finally see the truth. God, we need you now. We need you now. Oh, we need you now. One day, one day, one day, I hope you see the truth. This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josh. Welcome to the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose, live with you Monday through Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. This is where we bring you the unfolding global conspiracy. And yesterday was Memorial Day, so we had the day off. I hope everybody enjoyed time with their family, their friends, and had remembrance of those who served and gave the ultimate sacrifice for freedom. It wasn't Veterans Day yesterday. No reason to thank a veteran yesterday. Yesterday was to thank those veterans who are no longer with us, who gave their lives, the ultimate sacrifice for freedom. And today we reflect on those lives that were given. Today we reflect on those moments in history of when humanity, America, triumphed above all else to help restore order back to the world. And we wonder what the hell happened. We wonder what has happened to this world. It's absolute bananas. It's crazy. If you're wondering which song that is God, We Need You Now by Struggle Jennings and Caitlin Curtis. You can find that on YouTube. You can find that either on the Country Rebel channel. You can type in Country Rebel and you can type in God, We Need You Now. Or you can find that on Struggle Jennings and Caitlin Curtis's YouTube page. Just by typing in their names, you should be able to find them. I hope everybody is just having a fantastic day, though. It's Tuesday, May 28th, 2024, and shit is getting ready to hit the proverbial fan. I threw a warning up there that someone had posted, and I thought that it was perfectly well said. It is a quote by me and Kimberly Anderson, who had posted it on Facebook. I'll put it up there again. They will scorch this earth before they ever give up power. Do we believe it now? Do you believe it now with everything that is happening? I'm not the bearer of doom and gloom. I'm just calling shit as I see it. I'm calling things as they unfold. People can give you the hopium. People can give you the fucking, good guys are going to win and all this shit. And you know what? That might be the case, but at the end of the day, it is a war. It is a battle. There's moves and counter moves. And where we heard that before, moves and counter moves. I've heard that before. What about from the boards? We can just go to the boards right now. Let's take a look at the boards real quick. And I'm not going to mention any special characters other than the boards, okay? But the boards are important, and this one is critically important. Now playing on channels 4, 5, and 6, Guardians of the Pedophiles, Panic in DC, and FISAgate. Now, isn't that interesting? All three movies playing simultaneously. Do you find it interesting that everything discussed in the past is somehow making the news as of late? There is no better time in the world that this becomes relevant than right now. I mean, just think about what is happening globally, what is happening in our country, what is being exposed, what is being brought forth. That is the truth right there. Guardians of the Pedophiles. We can get into that, how there's various different social and cultural movements that are protecting them, that the political elite are protecting that Hollywood is crumbling down because of this mafia that has been organized inside their infrastructure that is absolutely 100% infiltrated within the realm of pedophilia and human trafficking. Then we have panic in DC. When else have you seen them begin to put fences up around the Capitol building when nothing was really going on? Well, they're anticipating something. We're going to get into that a little later. And then FISA-gate, everything to do with FISA-gate, it is coming. There is going to be some huge drops, I believe, coming here in and around July time period. Now, let's just jump into this. We got a lot of news to cover. It's been, 4 days since we've talked. So I want to get this information out to all of you. Let's talk about this. Mario Newall on Twitter. I don't care if you like him or not. That's how I feel. I go to certain people on Twitter for news, and I think that they do a good job at delivering it. He does a 12-hour news recap, and I want to read these to you because they're all important. Japanese Foreign Minister Kamikawa urged Israel to halt its military operation in Gaza's Rafah district and express concerns over the humanitarian crisis. This comes after this massacre that came in Rafah. Now, that is now being back blamed on Gaza, on the Palestinians, right? But even Netanyahu came out and was like, oh, we made a mistake. Our bad. But this couldn't have been caused by our weapons. No. Bombs and missiles couldn't have done that. A U.S. congressional delegation led by Representative Michael McCaul met with Taiwan's new president, promising the delivery of ordered weapons after Chinese military's punishment drills protesting Taiwanese presidential Lai Ching-te's inauguration. European Union Vice President Josep Borrell, the situation on the battlefield is reaching a critical stage. That's why today with the defense ministers, we'll see how we can overcome all the difficulties that prevent us from fully mobilizing our resources. And he's talking about Ukraine there. And by the way, if you haven't figured it out, World War III has already started. It is well underway. It started with the information war. It has moved from information to cybersecurity with attacks on infrastructure, agriculture, as well as supply chain, and has now moved to a kinetic front in proxy with Ukraine against Europe and Russia. Spain, Ireland, and Norway officially recognize a Palestinian state. This is important. Spain, Ireland, and Norway officially recognize a Palestinian state. So we have various NATO members as well as U.S. allies, Japan, Spain, Ireland, Norway, all coming forth and recognizing Palestine as a state. Hezbollah is prepared to continue the war until the U.S. elections and possibly until next spring. According to unnamed sources, Hezbollah leader Nasrallah promised more surprises in a recent speech. These could be widespread terrorist attacks throughout Israel, throughout the Middle East, and even potentially in the United States. We know Hezbollah Unit 910 is operating in the United States, coming over the border illegally. This has been reported by Ted Benjamin, who's testified multiple times in front of Congress, the last in 2023 in September, talking about how various Texas Border Patrol agents, as well as Customs and Border Patrol agents, have I can't speak today. I'm going too fast. But interdicted various terrorist organization members coming over the border, thousands upon thousands of them, and still let them through. This is Hezbollah's Unit 910, trained by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. This is like their special forces operations of this small terrorist rebel group. That could be very, very concerning in the United States if this begins to curtail and continue in these drastic fronts. Egyptian media reports that Egyptian soldier was injured yesterday in an exchange of fire with IDF forces in the Rafah crossing area, has died of his wounds. This is huge. Egypt, not a NATO member, but a NATO ally, one of the largest militaries in that region, larger than all of the armies in Europe. One of their members has died in an exchange of gunfire with an Israeli IDF soldier. This is massive because this could escalate the tensions even more, especially since Egypt has been trying to stop the border crossing of Palestinians into Egypt for a very, very long time. Closing arguments are expected today in Trump's hush money trial. The closing arguments have happened. Trump, this is a dark day in America. We have a rigged court case that should have never been brought. I agree. His lawyer absolutely nailed it with Michael Cohen in the sense of an opportunist trying to embezzle and launder money from Donald Trump. We'll see how the jury actually sees it. There's potential that Donald Trump potentially goes to jail over this, which is absolutely insane, because I can remember a podcast back in November of 2020 when my brother Jason and myself sat here and we discussed the first arrest and how the first arrest isn't going to be John Podesta or Hillary Clinton. It's not going to be Barack Obama. It's going to be Donald Trump. The first arrest, the first person to go to jail over all of this is going to be Donald Trump. And that is going to set the stage. That is going to bring about the narrative and begin all of it to unfold. RFK Jr. just crushed it in New York, submitting 135,519 signatures, 3 times the required amount to get on the ballot. This gives Kennedy ballot access in 15 states with 229 electoral votes. An F-35 reportedly crashed during takeoff in Albuquerque, New Mexico. A gas explosion at Chase Bank building in Youngstown, Ohio, trapped people and caused multiple injuries. The blast destroyed the building's first floor. Now, is that a gas explosion? I don't know. We've been having a lot of various different gas explosions these days. But let's back up. There's panic in DC because the narrative is unfolding and they can't control it. Why can't they control it? Well, this has been the forefront of what we've done here at the Red Pill Project, the daily dose of everything that we've talked about. We are the media. We now control the media narrative. They no longer have control of this primary domain that encompasses everything in the world. And they're scared. They're scared because their propaganda, their tactics, their psychological warfare, it doesn't work the way it used to work. And if you go back to everything that we've said over the last 4 or 5 years, we said that this was going to happen. We said that we're going to come to this point of culmination. We're going to come to these precipice points. But more importantly, we said that when their backs are against the wall, they'll begin to expend ammunition and there will be panic in DC. And when they see no other way out, they will scorch the earth before they ever give up power back to Donald Trump. The new Nostradamus predicts World War III start date with global tensions boiling over in the coming weeks. A self-proclaimed modern-day Nostradamus has pinpointed the exact date he believes World War III will erupt after successfully forecasting recent tensions across global hotspots. Dubbed the new Nostradamus, astrologer Kushal Kumar is credited with predicting the recent flare-ups between Israel and Hamas, Korea's China and Taiwan, Russia's friction with NATO. While skeptics might dismiss his predictions as easy guesses, Kumar claims to have used Vedic astrology charts systems steeped in Hindu tradition that interprets the supposed map of our karma through the positions of planet stars. Kumar has now turned to the ancient charts once again to foretell the outbreak of World War III, suggesting it's just around the corner. He revealed 2024 was predicted to be majorly worrisome in relation to war conditions in hotspots across the world, particularly around May 8th. It was indicated carrying highest escalation in such war fronts as Korea's, China, Taiwan, the Middle East, involving Israel and others in the Middle East, and Ukraine, Russia. The anger of NATO could also find expression. He also hinted with potential health crises or resignations among leaders involved in these conflicts. Additionally, he warned of severe impacts on aviation and tourism, cautioning against possible conspiracies and deceitful events. So this is where it gets interesting. In the light of these details, an impression gathered is that some well-defined indications of alert have found a mention for better care and appropriate strategy for men who matter in countries at war, directly or indirectly. Now, Tuesday, June 18th, 2024, has the strongest planetary stimulus to trigger World War III, although June 10th and June 29th may have a say as well. Now, this guy's using Vedic astrology. Great. Have fun with that, buddy. I just followed the narrative, and we were able to accurately predict almost every single one of these events. Some of them almost to the exact hour. I'm not the new Nostradamus. I'm just a logical, rational human being who understands how the world and the universe unfolds and how narrative and information play into the minds of human beings and how actions are correlated directly from that. Now, if you watch Redacted today, Clayton Morris did a whole part about this. I wanted to play this because it's really, really important with some of the things that are said in the sense of the 51 days that we have in the countdown to World War III, as per the new Nostradamus. Let's take a listen to this with Clayton. Let me bring this up here. Let me see if I can do it like this. There it is. I think, is this one better? Okay, hold on. There we go. That's it. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, let's play this. Let's listen to this.
Get started, shall we? All right, World War III begins in just 51 days. Set your calendar, everyone. Get your shopping done, because 51 days, those aren't my words. Those are actual headlines from mainstream Western media warning us all that doomsday is coming soon. Exact date, World War III will start as new Nostradamus claims it's just weeks away. The new Nostradamus. July 18th, by the way, is the date. July 18th, 2024. It happens to be the exact date that the new Nostradamus warned us about. Yes, a guy that people call the new Nostradamus said this, and Western publications run with it, of course, as journalist Vladimir Kornilov writes this morning in a great piece called "The West is accuming itself to the thought of an imminent world war." If you've been watching any media recently, you see that there's a growing narrative right now being pushed by Western media and political elites. I'd love to get your guys' take on this. I mean, if you see this conditioning that's happening right now to accept something unimaginable and the onset of World War III, basically, this is not fear-mongering. This is a call to awareness, essentially. What I'm trying to do is explain how they're preparing you for this. Normalizing this, trying to desensitize you to it. So many of you were calling out in the chat, you know, when that Civil War movie was being pushed on us. Like, what are they trying to prep us for? What are they trying to prep us for with the Civil War movie that the Obamas like rolled out? What are they trying to...
Not subtle, is it?
It's not subtle at all. I mean, when you have all these mainstream media publications talking about that we are either in World War III or about to hit World War III.
Now, I want to touch on A24 Studios. So he mentioned the movie Civil War from A24 Studios, who also put out a few months earlier Leave the World Behind. That was done by Barack Obama's studio A24 there, which, if you watch Leave the World Behind, it seems to be the prequel to the movie Civil War. Very, very important there because it starts off with a massive cyber attack and ends with nuclear explosions, which we don't know are nuclear power plants that are melting down or whether that is an actual nuclear strike. But moving forward.
But that date doesn't work for me. Can I just reject the calendar invitation?
You won't have a choice if they're dropping nuclear weapons or if NATO decides they're fully going to be engaging Russia. So they're trying to desensitize you to it. That, don't worry, folks, World War III won't be that bad. This is what their narrative is right now. Great. Get ready for it. Don't fall for it, though.
Yeah, judging by the last two world wars, yeah, it's going to be a cakewalk. Because if world wars are anything to go by, no one will barely notice.
That went well.
Yeah. But the media, it's amazing to me because the media is normalizing this idea. They're treating it as mundane, sort of an inevitable occurrence, something unpleasant, but ultimately just totally tolerable, that you can kind of get through it, no problem. Just a little World War III to go along with your election year. Perfect timing. Right now, 61% of Americans, according to a new poll, believe World War III is inevitable. 61% of Americans? It's coming. Think about that for a moment. We're being conditioned to believe that a global conflict, one that could end civilization as we know it, it's not just possible, but probable. They're running polls about it, for crying out loud. The British government, for example, is advising its citizens to stock up on canned foods, candles, batteries, in case of an emergency, in case of this coming war. This isn't just about preparedness, it's about embedding a mindset of acceptance. British MP Andrew Bridgen just days ago told us that the UK government is weeks away from telling us that a world war has started.
Rishi wants out. We are actually at war with Russia now. We've got. They haven't told you. So say that again. We're actually at war with Russia now. I met with Andrei Kelin, the Russian ambassador in London, a couple of months ago, and He said that we know that your people are firing those Storm Shadow missiles at us out of Ukraine because you couldn't train the Ukrainians to do it. We know you're doing it, and I mean everybody knows that there are lots of US, UK, French. The French are in there.
I thought it was the Brits were down on the ground and special advisors.
Yeah.
Training sessions and teaching them and showing them.
Isn't that how?
But they were apparently. That's how we started with the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Dude, what the frack are we doing poking the bear? That's really stupid.
They're determined to get us into a war with Russia, and thank God we've got someone in Putin who at least has got some brains.
Now you sound like a Putin lover.
Well, I'm not.
So Ukraine.
So that's the important part right there. British foreign minister, they're telling you, Europe is already at war with Russia. World War III has already started. They just haven't told you yet. When you start to look at it, you have Victoria Nuland last week coming out saying that the U.S. needs to give Ukraine a longer range missile so that they can strike Russian military bases. Secretary of Defense Austin says that we need the capability for Ukraine to strike deep inside Russia at Russian military targets. And Russia knows that the Storm Shadow missiles that are being fired into Russia are not Ukrainian. They're not being fired by Ukrainians because they don't have time to train them. Do you remember the sinking of the Russian naval vessels? The Moskov. How the P-8 Poseidons were utilized in the tracking and the telemetry of shooting the long-range missiles into the Black Sea that take them out. That was not Ukrainians who did that. That was U.S. who did that. And Russia knows. But Putin has used restraint. And I'm not a Putin lover either. But Putin has used restraint, people. Because he understands the severity of the next moves. But Putin has also heeded the warnings. So let's go into here. Russian President Putin issues warning to NATO. NATO countries must realize what kind of game they are playing. And they do. French President, come on, get out of here. French President Macron effectively declares war on Russia, says Ukraine must strike Russian territory and deploying French military advisors to Ukraine. German Chancellor is in shock. He knows Russia will destroy Europe if they go to war. What else we got here? Russia's FSB intelligence chief has accused NATO countries of preparing to conduct nuclear strikes on Russia. Russia is claiming that NATO has been running drills in preparation and planning of nuclear strikes in Russia. You can't make this shit up, people. Okay? This is how close and severe this actually is. We quite literally are probably moments, days, hours, months away from all-out war breaking out between Russia. And here's the thing. This is the one key point that nobody in the West is talking about. China has Russia's back. Yeah, I know the U.S. defense spending tramples Russia and China combined. I get it. It doesn't matter. Because here's the thing. The United States right now, economically and militarily, as well as politically, does not have the capability to go in there and fight an extended war in Eastern Europe. They will absolutely get decimated and destroyed. They'll have absolute air superiority, but that does not win battles. But when China enters that, it's a different game. It seems right now, France, Britain, the United States, they have soldiers on ground in Ukraine that are launching strikes deep into Russian territory. This is NATO members, Americans, attacking Russians in warfare. Putin knows this and has used restraint and warned NATO over and over and over again. But he will only warn them so much longer. I think what we are about to see is we will see a gallant effort by Russia to take out Zelensky, to form some type of color revolution in Ukraine over the next 2 to 3 months. You got to remember, there's been a massive atrophy that has occurred within the Ukrainian people. Their males, 25 years and older or 18 years of age or older, are leaving the country in troves and being caught and dragged back into military service. They do not want to fight. They do not want this war to continue. What that's going to bring about is an uprising within Ukraine. And if Russia plays their game right, if they play the intelligence game right, Russia can step in and formulate a color revolution very similar to the Maidan massacre that happened in 2014, of which they can topple the Ukrainian government, the Nazis in Ukraine, and install their own type of governmental model. Shemenko or whoever they want to put in there. It doesn't really matter at this point. But that type of move, if it did occur, would bring about all-out war. That's the thing you have to understand, is that move right there would bring out all-out war. Yeah, they would control Ukrainian territory. Yeah, they would control Ukraine and surrounding areas. But it would bring out all-out war throughout Ukraine and bring the criminal courts in against Putin and so forth. There is no easy way out of this right now. Now, Donald Trump just yesterday said that if I was president and Russia and China were doing what they're doing, I would bomb the shit out of them. That's a scary thing for Donald Trump to say. I understand what the rhetoric that Donald Trump is putting out there. And I think that we know kind of what's really happening with Donald Trump and his rhetoric and why he's saying those types of things. He's got to be strong on Russia and China. But I also believe that this is part of the escalated plan, that they wanted the BRICS nations to rise up first economically to defeat the various different types of sanctions that are produced by the US dollar onto countries like Russia, China, and other smaller BRICS nation countries. But also the formulation of the military alliance, which gets to rise up against the NATO nations and really test the waters of the Western global order, which the Western global order we know is the one world government order, the one world government, a commie-fascist technocratic state ran by an oligarchical, non-voted in board of directors, where the BRICS derivation of a new world order is something more of this distributed sovereignty of each nation coming together, more like the League of Nations that we had many decades ago. And so we're seeing this battle of these two nationalistic ideologies, nationalistic and globalistic ideologies that are at the forefront of global war. And there's really no easy scenario out of this, that either Russia backs off, goes home, and it all ends, or this escalates into World War III. And I believe that I think we all know the answer to this, that this is going to escalate into World War III. And then that brings in Chinese involvement. Now, we talked about Chinese technologies, what China is deploying on their battlefield. And see, here's the thing is I have not seen much of this in the American side at all. Check this out. We talked about the military dogs last week. Let's check them out again. So I've said it before, I'll say it again. Paintball guns. One thing that you would want to do with those paintball guns is you want to heat the paint before you shoot it at something like that, because those things have thermal IR sensors. And then if you encapsulate it in heat-bedded paint that absorbs heat and holds heat very, very well, you're going to have a good chance to get your ass away from that thing. And you better hurry and get your ass away from that thing. Speaking of China, China prepares ferries for possible Taiwanese invasion. China is reportedly readying ferries and civilian vessels for potential invasion of Taiwan. Lacking sufficient amphibious landing craft, the PLA plans to use civilian ships to transport troops and vehicles across the Taiwanese Strait. Now, this goes back about 2.5 years when we reported here on the Red Pill Project on the Daily Dose how China was amassing over 6,000 civilian vessels onto their borderland countries just north of Taiwan. And they were mobilizing these for military service because China didn't have the extended short craft landing craft within their navy to actually perpetuate this. U.S. intelligence believes Xi Jinping has ordered the PLA to be ready to take out Taiwan before 2027, but this is a lot sooner than we're talking about. It's going to be before the 2024 election because China cannot risk the opportunity of Donald Trump getting back into office. Now, with that being said, we've seen the top two microchip makers in Taiwan come out and tell China last week that, hey, we got backdoors into our chips. And if you invade us, we're going to shut down all your electronic technology. Now, here's the thing is China can either call their bluff or China can back off. But here's China's move. It's either now or never. So Taiwanese chip makers actually saying that China is going to utilize various antiquated technologies like civilian ferries and vessels to go invade Taiwan with military troops and sheer force and power. China has reportedly been preparing the largest military fleet to invade Taiwan. Experts predict the invasion could happen within the hour, day, week, or month very, very soon. Now predictions are saying even June. Taiwan has passed the controversial pro-China measure. Taiwan's opposition-controlled legislature has passed changes favoring China, reducing the president's power. This comes on the inauguration of the new Taiwanese president. The Nationalist Party pushed 3 changes to give the legislature greater control over budgets, including defense spending. Thousands protested outside, while inside arguments on the floor broke into shouting and pushing matches. The Nationalist Party officially backed unification with China, from which Taiwan separated from in 1949. Now, why is that important? Go back to every time I've talked about Taiwan and China. What is the one thing? I just said this the other day too. I said the first move that China will do in Taiwan is when you know they're getting ready to invade Taiwan is a political move. It will be the political move. It will be organizing and getting various different political leaders who represent and lead various groups of people on their side, to the point where China can simply just walk right in. China over the last week has been protesting U.S. arms coming into Taiwan, saying no more, you must recognize Taiwan as a Chinese state. So I think that we're very, very close to that invasion. I thought it was going to happen last year, but I think now that we could potentially see this occurring before the election this year, because they cannot allow Donald Trump to get in the power, because China will be absolutely defenseless against Taiwan if Donald Trump does come in the power. We talked about Israel and the airstrike on Rafah. The airstrike was a tragic mistake, according to Netanyahu. Gaza health officials said that at least 45 people were killed in the airstrike, including displaced people who were living in tents that were engulfed by the fire. Netanyahu, despite our utmost efforts not to harm innocent civilians, last night there was a tragic mistake. We are investigating the incident and will obtain conclusion because this is our policy. So Netanyahu even coming out to the international community saying, we fucked up. We're sorry, we fucked up. But this isn't the first time. This is just the first time because things are so hot and critical with everything that's happening there that they cannot push the blame on to the various different rebel groups in Gaza. And then we talked about the Israeli and Egyptian forces in exchange of fire in the Rafah border crossing. Rafah could be the place that this all begins. Now, if you go back to the beginning of the firestorm, we talked about on the brink of World War III, what you would see is destabilization within Eastern Europe, destabilization within the Middle East, and destabilization within the South China Sea. These are the 3 indicators that we would need to have globally in order for us to know the narrative is unfolding in the World War III. I don't want to be right. I don't like to be right about this. I laugh and giggle because holy fuck, it's actually happening. And there's people out there that are like, just relax, man. It's all good. We got this. We got this. It's going to be okay. Those people obviously have never served in the military or understand anything about military tactics, strategies, or anything about the economy, anything about how governments operate and politicians operate in the world. Because that's one thing that I do understand, and that's one thing that I watch very, 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 very closely. And when we've talked about the firestorm event throughout the last 4 years, there was various things that I told you that we need to watch for, that we need to be warned about, that we will know when the storm is coming, when the shitstorm of the various parts of Donald Trump putting this information, the Crossfire Hurricane binder out, all this stuff. When these stories start dropping, you're going to know, because the world events are going to start to escalate. The economy is going to start to go in the dumps and in the shitter. World War III is going to begin to escalate. That's going to start with destabilization in Eastern Europe, destabilization in the Middle East, destabilization in the South China Sea, as well as various points of social and cultural destabilization here in the United States, political destabilization in Washington, D.C., and the infiltration of our various universities and institutions. What are we seeing all right now? All of that. Hands down, all of that. U.S. Navy Admiral Daryl Caudle says foreign nationals are attempting to breach U.S. Navy bases 2 times per week. Listen to this crap.
More and more. This is something we see probably 2 or 3 times a week, where we're stopping these folks at the gate with a week at least. And this is just Navy alone, where we're seeing folks try to come in. And usually the cover story is, and I'm a student, I'm here, I'm an enthusiast, I want to see the ships, that type of thing. We have to turn them around. And typically we get NCIS involved with those, and we get biometrics when possible. But yes, there's been an uptick in that.
Do they have passports? Do they have?
A lot of times they have passports.
Papers?
They have papers, yes. But they're in no way, shape, or form authorized to be on our base. And it's really hard for us to tell the underlying motive for these type of cases.
Wow, that's stunning.
It is.
It's got to be a concern.
This is Russian, Chinese. It comes from all these different nations. We're seeing an uptick in it.
In addition to that, there's been some reporting on this over the last 6 months.
So this comes off the heel of a former Green Beret U.S. Army Ranger who shot and killed a man in his backyard that happens to be an illegal immigrant, Chechen, and apparently collecting information and data from that special operator's house. Now, that question, this is just outside of Fort Bragg. The question comes, firstly, this is an illegal immigrant. He's Chechen, so is he Muslim affiliated? Is he radical Islam affiliated? Or is he Russian affiliated? Next is, how did he know who that guy was? And this guy wasn't no little guy in the military, okay? The guy who shot and killed him was not some just enlisted guy who doesn't know shit about shit and takes orders, okay? This guy knew who he was watching. And good on the Green Beret for killing him. But you have to understand that that's not the only instance of this. That is not the only thing that's happening. It's happening all over our country right now. We have been infiltrated by a very, very radical ideology that is controlling things through the strings of the puppets. And that our military bases have various different types of people showing up. Why are they there? They're staking out our military bases. They're testing defenses. These are dry test runs. That's what they are. I was in the military. I was a military police officer in Washington, D.C. I worked the gate. I worked patrol. This is what we look for. This is what we're trained to look for with these types of people. If you have a foreign national, these are the damn drills that we used to run. And we're told exactly why they're doing what they're doing. They're going there. They're trying to gain base access. They want to know various different rotation protocols, who is rotating in, who's rotating out, what type of people they have at the gates, who's the weak people, who's the strong people, who's armed, who's not armed. They want to know the integrity, the aggressive nature of who is stopping them. Are they being detained? Are they being turned away? They want to know all these different things because that helps them into understanding how to penetrate and get into that base. They walk around the base, they take pictures, they jump over the fences, they check and see if they can break our defenses. This is what these people are doing. And then we're finding them outside of military members' houses, and not just any military member, but a person who's running special operations groups. Today, we had a Chase Bank building explode in downtown Youngstown, Ohio. They're saying the gas explosion. But was it really? I don't know. I think it's kind of odd. That one wasn't on my bingo card this year of a gas explosion at a JP Morgan Chase Bank. But hey, you never know. So there's a few different ideas that are running through my head right now. If a plane crashes, who was on it? That's the first thing you ask. If someone is being spied on in their backyard, who's that person? If someone close to Hillary Clinton dies, would they know on Hillary Clinton, right? But also, is we are at that point, people. We are in deep in the firestorm, and it is occurring right now in our country. And we have to be ready for everything and anything. And this is potential assassinations on political leaders. We saw that just a few weeks ago on various different political leaders around the world. We got to watch for arrests and detainment of political leaders and political persecution. Donald Trump is facing 34 felony charges, 20 years in prison. 22 witnesses have testified, 17 days of testimony, 7 weeks on trial, 236 pieces of evidence, a corrupt judge, and 0 crime. He did nothing. He knew nothing about any of this. Coming from Justin Deschamps over on Twitter. If you're not following Justin, you should be. Justin Stillness, at Justin Stillness on Twitter. He says, everything you need to know as a Trump trial heads to verdict. What happens next? Justice Merchant asked jurors to prepare for a long day today. How the judge delivers this interpretation of the law will inevitably influence the jury's decision. Should jurors be instructed that President Trump needed to have willfully concealed intent to defraud? Should the instructions include an example explaining that the legal expense might not classify a campaign expenditure? Should jurors be told up front all the things prosecutors are not required to show? Should jurors be given an example of what it means to cause a false entry to be made? The jurors will work on May 29th, when previously they had taken Wednesdays off, to begin deliberations while closing arguments are still in their minds. So today, what we had is Secret Service has met with New York City jails in anticipation that Donald Trump's verdict comes back to where he will face jail time and be jailed. This goes back to something that we talked about with the first arrest. Now, what might we see if Donald Trump is arrested? And I do not condone violence in any way, shape, or form. I'm telling you to stay out of this. This is not our fight. We don't want riots. We don't want protests. We don't need to go out there and be those people. But what we're going to find out is something very similar that was happening outside of the Trump trial today. This is just outside of the Trump trial today. You got to remember, people are getting heated everywhere. This is what we saw outside of the Trump trial today. Various altercations with pro-right and pro-left demonstrators outside the Trump trial. Things are starting to get heated. If Donald Trump goes to jail, there's a large potential for assassination attempts on Donald Trump's life. Secret Service has met with the local law jail officials to discuss preparations for President Trump to go behind bars. Although there's probably less than a 60% chance that this will happen, there's still that 40% chance that the jury does convict him, because we know that this jury was handpicked by both sets of lawyers who don't give a shit about Donald Trump. And we could see something very, very serious come out of this. Potential assassination attempts. Putting Donald Trump in prison is going to spark national outcry from MAGA and various other conservatives. Protests will ensue, and we know that once those protests do begin, that there is going to be a fueling of instigators in those protests to promulgate violence in some way, shape, or form, and that could be the way that we enter into the summer of love. Jack Smith losing his ass on everything. With Judge Cannon. Proposed gag order and nasty email exchange with Trump's attorney Todd Blanche backfires as Judge Cannon warns sanctions could be next against Jack Smith. He is absolutely being shut down by Judge Cannon. And this is great because this case has basically been put on the back burners, and it's basically over. It's basically over. They have nothing on Donald Trump with any of this. Hollywood star Dennis Quaid to vote for Trump in 2024 elections, cites weaponization of the justice system as a reason. This is someone who has never been pro-Donald Trump, but now we're seeing many people come forth in effort to support Donald Trump. Libertarian Party chair appears to insinuate support for Trump as party faces backlash over nomination of a radical leftist gay. I don't care the gay part, but the Libertarian candidate happened to be a radical leftist. Socialist. Won the Libertarian candidate nomination when Donald Trump was leading by 60%. But the party chair appears to be showing massive support for Donald Trump, as well as many other libertarians showing massive support for Donald Trump as well. Yes, De Niro had a large freak out at the courthouse today. I don't give a shit about that person. I mean, think about it. Robert De Niro has zero influence over anybody. It's just funny to see him balk and get angry about this shit, because it's a little man having a fucking temper tantrum, and his movies suck. His older movies, pretty good. Al Pacino, way better actor. Democrats are freaking out over Dementia Joe. That's right. National Democrats are sounding the alarm over Dementia Joe Biden, and his polls continue to lag against President Trump. He's down double digits against President Trump in almost all the polls. Democrat operative James Carville has unleashed the Biden campaign for failing to attack Trump effectively and raising the alarm bells on White House occupants' poor numbers with young and black voters. But now the panic has spread far beyond just Carville. Political reported this morning wide swaths of the party are in full-blown freak-out mode, panic in D.C., as haughty Biden campaign continues to ignore the warning signs of inflation, immigration, and his own unpopularity. The worry even extends to strategists who were previously confident regarding Biden's chances against Trump. Nearly 5 months from the election, anxiety has morphed into palpable trepidation, according to more than a dozen party leaders and operatives. And the gap between what Democrats will say on TV or in print and what they'll text to their friends has only grown as worries have surged about Biden's prospects. You don't want to be the guy who is on the record saying we're doomed or the campaign's bad or Biden's making mistakes. Nobody wants to be that guy, said the Democratic operative in close touch with the White House and granted anonymity to speak freely. But Biden's stubbornly poor polling and the stakes of the election are creating a freakout. This isn't, oh my God, Mitt Romney might be president. It's, oh my God, the democracy might end. And that's right. The democracy of the deep state might end because Joe Biden is an absolute failure. Compounding Democrat woes, the fact Trump's fundraising has picked up significantly. He has outraised Biden by a whopping $25 million last month, which includes an earth-shattering $50.5 million fundraising haul from an event in Palm Beach, Florida. Now, we had last week, we heard about Joe Biden was going to be on the Ohio ballot. The DNC has announced new workaround to get Joe Biden on the Ohio ballot, despite the Democrats' registration failures. The DNC announced it will virtually nominate Joe Biden to get him on the Ohio ballot, despite failing to register him on time. The Ohio Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, warned Ohio Democrat Chairman Liz Walters that Joe Biden may have trouble getting on Ohio's general election ballot. In the letter sent to Liz Walters, the Ohio Secretary of State warned that Joe Biden might be non-compliant because the DNC convention will take place after the state's deadline to certify a presidential campaign. Frank LaRose said either a Democrat party can move up its DNC convention or the Ohio state legislature must act by May 9th. Last week, Secretary of State Frank LaRose said his office had not received any communication on behalf of the Democrat Party or the DNC clarifying its intent to comply with the Ohio ballot's access deadline. A few days ago, Ohio's Governor Mike DeWine called for a special legislative session aimed at circumventing state laws to place Joe Biden on the November ballot, despite clear registration failures by the Democratic Party. The DNC announced they found a workaround to ensure Biden is on the Ohio ballot as the state legislature meets next week. Joe Biden will be on the ballot in Ohio and all 50 states, and Ohio Republicans agree. But when the time has come for action, they have failed to act every time. So Democrats will land this plane on their own, according to Harrison. So the DNC isn't even taking Joe Biden for president seriously. And you got to wonder why. Why are they not taking Joe Biden's re-election campaign seriously? Many Democrats who are not in the know are freaking out. Many people in the left are freaking out because they know that Joe Biden has dementia. They know he is not the right candidate, that he cannot do another 4 years, that he is ultimately going to be a failure as a next-term president if he even had a chance to win. He is polling double digits below Donald Trump. He's failing to meet ballot registration election deadlines. Okay? Listen to Ducey here.
Are you guys here at the White House in full-blown freak-out mode?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
There's a Politico
Peter?
story. It sounds like Democrats outside, the quote is, Biden's stubbornly poor polling and the stakes of the election are creating the freakout.
So, again, I'm going to be mindful. I'm not going to comment on 2024 election. I will say this. The president has never forgotten where he came from, who he is. He understands what the American people are going
He actually has forgotten where he came from and who he is, by the way.
through. As they're sitting around the kitchen table, you hear the president talk about his time growing up, where he.
You mean the lies that he talked about growing up and, hairy legs and cockroaches and how his uncle was eaten by cannibals?
He watched his family having to sit around the kitchen table, making incredibly difficult decisions. And the president has always said he's going to fight for communities that have been forgotten. And you see that in the policies.
So basically, she just created a whole line of bullshit because there is panic in DC. There is panic in the DNC, people. Now, that brings about some very, very speculative questions. Why? What is their strategy? They failed the last 4 years. Everything that they said Donald Trump would do. Everything they said that Donald Trump's a fascist. Donald Trump is collaborating with big business to get kickbacks for all the people in government. Donald Trump is going to raise taxes on the middle class and on poor people. Donald Trump is going to allow the rich to get off and the corporations to get off. Donald Trump is going to start World War III. Donald Trump is going to kill the economy. He's going to kill freaking the energy industry. He's going to allow the United States to fall into shambles. Everything that they said Donald Trump would do, the Democrats are now doing themselves. It's all happened under Joe Biden. He's pulling double digits below Donald Trump. There is absolutely no way he can win this election. I mean, Donald Trump's potentially going to be in jail and win the presidency. He's the most popular presidential candidate / president in the history of mankind. He's absolutely dominating this election cycle, and they can't stop him, and they know it. But the problem is that the Biden campaign, it's not even that they gave up. They're not even trying. It's almost like they know something. It's almost like there's another strategy at play that nobody's talking about. It's almost like they don't give a flying fuck about the November 5th election. And why wouldn't they care about the November 5th election? Why wouldn't they care about Donald Trump? See, there's more ways than one to skin a cat. They don't care about winning the general election against Donald Trump. They know ultimately Joe Biden's going to fail and they can't cheat in the presidential election. But you know what they can do? The DNC can go out there and fund through various different lobbyists and various different PACs, 16 Republicans to step down in 2024 when they're up for re-election, which, if they win 50% of those seats, shifts the power of the House to the Democrats. Guess what? They just did that. 16 Republicans are stepping down. 16 rhinos are stepping down from their congressional positions, not seeking re-election, which are all in contested states, which they have a big rise of Democrat voters. Those 16 people are taking very nice packages, donations from PACs. They're taking money in from third-party lobbyists, most likely going to get some very, very hot jobs on some board of directors, big paychecks. But that opens the door for the Democrats to take Congress. Now, if the Democrats take Congress, let's look at a scenario here. Donald Trump overwhelmingly wins re-election on November 5th, 2024. The states certified this in and around December 15th, 16th. The new Congress comes in January 3rd. Congress and Senate then meet in the House on January 6th, 2024. Almost like projection from 2020. But this time, the roles are reversed. There's a few different hypotheticals. We talked about how RFK Jr. is now in the ballot in majority of the states. He could carry 13, 14, 18% of the vote. If Donald Trump does not get 270 electors, then in January 6th, Congress, along with Senate, 2 representatives from each state, get to determine who the next president is. And it doesn't have to be the person who got the most electoral college votes. It can be anybody they choose. It can be anybody they vote in. It could be RFK, it could be Biden, it could be Trump, it could be Newsom. See, their plan isn't to win in November, people. Their plan is to win the House and the Senate in November. And see, it's much easier to take that than it is the presidency when all eyes are on them. And nobody's talking about this. This is why I think the Trump card, per se, is in and around September timeframe, September-October timeframe. Donald Trump will announce his VP candidate. And it's going to be RFK Jr. Don't care if you like him, doesn't matter. But that narrows the deal of the electors and seals the deal for the electors for Donald Trump, which brings rise to the next scenario. That you go into January 6th, 2024. Trump wins with 270 plus electors over Joe Biden. Congress goes in there and they throw back the electors at the states and say that these are fraudulent and there must have been something wrong with the election. They claim voter fraud. Same thing that happened in 2020. Inverse projection. They throw it back to the states. They actually get their way and they halt the transition of presidential power for the first time in the United States of America's history. And just like Zelensky in Ukraine, Joe Biden, by decree, continues his term until it gets figured out. Those are 2 very real possible scenarios. But if the Democrat Party or the Congress and the Senate of the United States or Washington, D.C. is a sinking ship, then it's anything like President Joe Biden's $320 million Gaza pier investment that is actually quite literally sinking. Your taxpayer dollars hard at work. The pier that the U.S. military built off the coast of Gaza to, resupply weapons and ammunition to Israel and then give some food and water to Gaza is sinking. $320 million pissed away down the drain. This was interesting. We heard that BuzzFeed had filed for bankruptcy. May SEC filings show Vivek Ramaswamy has purchased an activist stake in BuzzFeed. So now we're seeing a lot of these mainstream lefty media channels going under and being bought up by people on the right. Kind of interesting how that happens. Hopefully they just shut them down, get rid of them. A side of vaccine with your eggs. I picked up some crates last week and I'm putting them together to make some chicken coops in my backyard. I actually talked to my neighbor this weekend and her and I are going to put them on the border of our property and we're going to share some chickens. And that way we always have fresh eggs that are grass-fed and free-range. A new report claims bird flu vaccines for laying hens are a success. 1,800 chicks were vaccinated and showing positive results 8 weeks later. With bird flu decimating poultry and hiking egg prices, officials hope these vaccines will save the day. Do you see what they did there? Bird flu, bird flu, bird flu, bird flu, bird flu. Be scared, bird flu, fear. We want to vaccinate your animals. We want to vaccinate the cows, the pigs, and the chickens because you have a correlative effect that occurs with these various different types of mRNA vaccines. Bill Gates was talking about it just 2 weeks ago when he says that we can vaccinate the poultry. We can vaccinate the cows. And now that'll give up you a vaccine and a certain level of immunity. They're coming for you, people. They're coming for you. U.S. birth rate hits record low. U.S. fertility rate has dropped to its lowest since 1979, reaching 1.64 births per woman in 2023. That's those who identify as women. 2% decline from 2022. Teen birth rates reached a record low, while the highest birth rates were among women aged 30 to 34. Fertility rates declined 5% for Black and Native women and 3% for Asian women. Experts warn this trend could impact future programs like Social Security in schools, with the U.S. population expected to actually decline for the first time by 2080. I wonder what's causing all that. I wonder what it is. I wonder what could cause all that. I don't know, like these emails. Newly released evidence reveals that the National Institutes of Health officials opened up encrypted Proton Mail accounts, misspelled keywords like Comey, and they spelled it corny, remember that? And forwarded confidential material to Gmail in an attempt to evade federal law and FOIA requests. See, the only reason that you would do that is if you were knowingly deceiving public inquiry. That's it. You were knowingly deceiving public inquiry. You didn't want the public to know what you were doing. Now, on a brighter note, in the sense of the pandemic treaty, the director of the World Health Organization has claimed that they do not have the support needed to pass the pandemic treaty. This is some news that we got. He says that they're going to work with member states to get it passed and pushed through. But
my wish is we will come out of the assembly re-energized, inspired. We will try everything, believing that anything is possible, and make this happen. Because the world still needs a pandemic treaty.
No, it doesn't.
And the world needs to be prepared, because many of the challenges that caused the serious impact during COVID-19 still exist.
Oh, yeah, it does. You guys.
Still exist.
You guys.
Starting from equity, for instance, was the center of this negotiation.
Did you hear what he just said? Listen to what he just said right there.
From equity, for instance, was the center of this. COVID-19 still exists.
Listen specifically to what he says right here.
Serious impact during COVID-19 still exists.
The serious impact from COVID-19 still exists, and this is why we need a pandemic treaty. And then he gives an example.
Still exists. Starting from equity, for instance, was
starting from equity. COVID-19 and the pandemic treaty are about equity? You mean diversity, equity, inclusion, ESG, environmental, social governance directed through the World Economic Forum? You mean this is ideological in nature? That the whole virus that overtook the world in 2020 had nothing to do with the virus, but the restrictions and the mask and everything like that came down because you're trying to create a more equitable future, a more equitable world? Kind of fucked up. What do we got here? I had one more story. For all my UFO buddies out there, this is retired U.S. Navy Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet. He says individuals within the government have communicated with UAP-related non-human intelligence. Listen to this shit. And he's not naming names, but we're hoping that he does. I have more on this, but I can't say at the moment, but we'll listen to this.
Do you think we've had communications with non-human intelligence?
I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. Just based on all this data and everything we're talking about,
what do you think those communications would look like?
I don't know. But I mean, actually, if you look at Diana Pasulka's book again, Encounters, this one former NASA engineer, he called the crashes that were retrieved donations. That's a form of communication right there. And so I don't know the nature of the communication and who was doing the communicating, but I am pretty sure from what I've seen from my sources, very sure, highly, that's occurred. Now with who? Parts of the government or just individuals? And actually, by the way, if you just, when you say we, if you mean the U.S. government, yeah.
Do you think we've had...
Did you hear what he said at the beginning? I'm going to go back and play that again, okay? I want to play this one part real quick to where he makes this statement. It's a really important statement.
Intelligence?
Based on all this data and everything we're talking about, they're
what do you
they're
think
here.
Those
Listen what he said there.
About
what do you
they're
think
here.
Those communications?
They're here. How many times have we heard that over and over and over again? They're here. Makes you wonder about what's really happening in the world and everything that is going on with what's happening in the world. And if this isn't something that maybe is being perpetuated for a reason, for an agenda that is much larger than ourselves, or maybe even directed by something off-world or something that is not of human intelligence. And that's where we really come into play a lot with these shows. And so if you really do like this content, if you like the Red Pill Project, the Daily Dose, or any of the shows that we have on here, please like, comment, go ahead and give a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe, please. Head on over to redpills.tv, redpills.tv. That's our website. You can find out much, much more about us on over there. And redpills.tv, all of our sponsor information in there is over there. For anybody out there who's getting the Pet Club 247 mushrooms, Pet Club 247 mushrooms, the immune modulating mushrooms, that is one of our primary sponsors here. Please head over to redpills.tv/mushroom. You got a few more days till the end of the month to get into the next shipping cycle. So if you go over there, redpills.tv/mushroom, you'll see the Corylus versicolor mushrooms. Get on over there. Also, if you guys are looking to take part in an event that's coming up this Saturday, I will be in Colorado. Going back home to Colorado for a little while. The Naturally Inspired Health Summit. If you haven't heard about this, go out there. It's June 1st in Loveland, Colorado. You can find the information at redpills.tv/NIP event. redpills.tv/NIP event. That's the Naturally Inspired Health Summit. I will be there. I'll have a booth. I might have some talking time. I might co-MC. We'll see about that. But I will definitely have a booth. I'll be out there meeting and greeting with everybody. So I hope to see some of you guys there. You can get your tickets at the redpills.tv/NIP event. That is the link for that. Guys, much love, respect. God bless you all. Take care. Hope you guys all have a great night. I'm going to see you guys again tomorrow night. Have a good night.
Boone, that's impossible. Only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.